take a big gulp of this like those YouTubers do that make those like 8-hour videos. I didn't want to have to make this video. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so I want to talk about my experience I had marching a WGI open class corps for the last 3.5 weeks. I just finished it, just came from Ohio for World Championships 2 days ago, and I wanted to make a video about this because I'm not normally I'm not a vlogger. I'm not even a YouTuber. I just do this so I could watch these videos in a couple years and kind of giggle about it. But I know I forget a lot of information, so I want to put all this in a video so that I can look back on it and remember all this stuff, because this was like a little really special time that I don't think I'll ever get to experience anything like it again. So basically, if you don't know anything about WGI, it is like a lot of drums, marching drums inside with a big mat on the floor and marimbas and vibraphones. If you don't know music, it's just like big xylophone looking things, and like kind of a lot of other instruments like electronic stuff, all sorts of kind of weird things. They use a lot of like vocal sampling and stuff, and you could think of it like marching band indoors with just a drum line. I don't think that does it justice, but like just to give you a rough idea. So this was never something I was crazy interested in. I always was interested in outdoor marching. I love the sound of like horn lines, like bah, that kind of deal. So when like I would ever look to like world class things like this, I always wanted to do DCI. I thought that was really cool, and I never really thought that much about WGI until I heard that it was a lot cheaper and there's less time commitment, and that was kind of why I didn't do any of these things. Was that the tuition for these kind of things for WGI, it's close to like $2,000, I think, but for like DCI course, you're looking at like $5,000 nowadays. It's just crazy. Drum corps is changing. Like the dynamics of everything is just very kind of fluid right now. We don't know where things are headed. And it's just not a world I'm a part of too much. I'm very much a college drumline. I'm going to make this place the best place it can be, rather than I'm going to march world class and be the best player I can be, all that kind of stuff, which is awesome. But it's just not something I really have the time or resources for, and not something I'm that interested in. But so this was a golden opportunity for me, because I always had that in the back of my mind, like, what if? Like, what if I did do those things? Would I love it? Would I hate it? Would it be something that I would get a lot out of and leave the experience with a lot? And I kind of got to find that out. So, like, there's a open class indoor group in Pittsburgh. There's world class, open class, A class in terms of, like, indoor drumline groups. And these guys were just recently promoted to open for being really freaking good. And it was super exciting for me because the A class was kind of where my like high school sat for a long time. And there are some high schools in open class, but it's insanely competitive. Like, it is just below world class drumlines. So yeah, there's a group in Pittsburgh called Nomad Indoor, and they're new, like new when it comes to these kind of things. I think they started in like 2017 or something, and indoor itself is a whole new activity, like in terms of marching and stuff, but it's super exciting to watch things grow and develop. So like, if I were ever to join one of these indoor groups, it would have been Nomad, because I like to feel like the underdogs and like act like you're building towards something, rather than like, oh, we're the world class groups, like we have this all under control and that kind of stuff. I love the push. I think it's a lot of fun. But like I said, not enough time, not enough resources, not enough money. And I have a lot of friends in Nomad that are on my drum line here at IUP, particularly on my snare line. As of recent, I have 2 of them on the right and left of me. And I'm really close with them. So I get texts from both of them towards the end of March one day when I'm eating Chick-fil-A, and they both are saying, hey, I know that you've been asked about this like for 2 years now. I know that the answer's been no every time, but I'm going to try it anyway because we need it right now. Please, please, please. I know there's 3 weeks left in the season. We need someone. We need someone to fill a spot. Someone left with 3 weeks left in the season, and it's either change all of our drill right now or find someone to fill that spot. It would be free. It would only be 3.5 weeks, and the spot is yours if you want it. And I said yes. I was like, okay, yeah. And it was a quick answer too, which is not what I've been giving them the past 2 years. It was like, I'll think about it, that kind of deal. So I text Ben. Ben is on this side of my snare line. He's incredible player, and he plays snare and quads for them because they needed a quad player for their solos, and he's just an animal when it comes to playing, learning, practicing. He's crazy. And Aaron on my right side is the center. So these guys are kind of like the upperclassmen, I guess you could say, of this drum corps. I don't know if drum corps is the right word. Because like a lot of these kids are high schoolers, but there are 3 and 4 IUP kids that march there, and they kind of run the business with Dave, and all the other staff. They're great. But I get a call from Dave later that night. He's like the director of the whole organization, and he calls me at like 12:30 at night, and I was expecting it, but I was waiting for a long time. And he's like, it's a short conversation. He was like, tell me what you know. I said, it's free. It's 3.5 weeks. You need me. And he was like, all those things are true. Let's just cut to the chase. Can you learn a show? And I was like, I'm about to find out if I can learn a show. He's like, okay, cool. You need to buy shoes because the guy whose spot you're filling, who's also on my snare line, he's like a size 12 shoe, and I'm not a size 12 shoe, so I had to buy my own shoes, but I'm wearing them right now. They're pretty nice. Most expensive shoes I've ever bought. But it was a race after that. As soon as I got off that call, I looked up the show. I got all the music sent to me. I practiced that night for like 2 or 3 hours trying to learn as much music as fast as I possibly could. And that's something I'm going to talk about a lot in this, how I did it. Because this isn't something that I think I could have done unless I consciously made the decisions that I made. And I think these are definitely a lot of lessons I learned that I want to like implement going forward, about flow and like programming your brain to do stuff. And it's fascinating. I'll get to that though. So I hit the practice room at 7 a.m. meaning I had to wake up at like 5 with Ben, the kid on the snare line that side. He's crazy. He's absolutely crazy. And we play starting from 7 to 10 a.m. where I can get my classes, and we do that every day. And Aaron always finds his way in there, and we're all 3 playing together, and we're learning the music. And the guy who quit actually was helping me learn the music too. And he was telling me everything about like what spots I come in at, what my drill's gonna look like, and like it's very much collaborative effort and like on all parts to get me caught up, which I super appreciate. But yeah, so after that, it hits Friday. So I was called on a Wednesday, and Friday comes, and I'm like, oh, I think I have all the music learned. Let's see how this goes. And obviously, going in on Friday, they're all like, we're so happy you're here. We're going to catch you up to speed. And I know, like, no matter how slow they take things, it's going to be crazy. I'm going to have so much to cram in my brain, and I'm going to have to find a way to do it. And, like, that's the first kind of thing, is finding a way. There are points in time where you have to think, is this healthy for me? Is this a well-balanced way to lead my life? All of those kind of things. I think that's very important, but I'd say like 10% of the time, you have to kind of put the mindset in of, I don't care how I feel unless I'm going to die or I'm putting others in danger. I need to get this thing done. And I mean, that's a crazy thing to say for just like this indoor show, but like that is kind of the mindset that I had to implement of like, I was eating, I was sleeping, but like my highest priority was cramming this show into my brain. Um, so many drill moves. I am not a good marcher by any means. I barely marched in high school. We did a lot of standstill percussion stuff. Um, so I knew that was going to be the hardest part. So we get there, and so Friday night we get the opener down, and like it felt like a miracle to me. I was like, this is insane. Um, so by the end of that night, we're doing full runs of the opener, and we do it like 3 or 4 times because each time more kids from like the pit are walking in and just watching. They're like, hey, look at this new kid. He's doing the whole opener now. So I needed to keep that momentum. But so after that, I spend my first kind of night at one of the people who was in Nomad before. They let all of these Nomad kids in the drum line stay at their house. And like that's another thing that I learned from this experience is how important good people are to these organizations, like these nonprofit WGI, DCI corps. There are so many people who are relying on others for goodwill, and there's people who bring that goodwill and bring all of these things that these guys need to like get through. Like you can't operate without it. And I think it's a good testament to the world as a whole. Is like you need good people to make things go around, and like I just got to kind of stand in awe of these people who would let us stay in their house, let like 20 kids stay in their house every night during the weekend, and they have been since like October. They're giving them like meals, and they have like a whole stash of snacks in the corner, and it's like I don't know what's motivating you besides just you being a great person, but like I hope you know the effect you have on not even just this drumline, but like the world, like for being that positive of a person. Um, yeah, I gotta kind of stay on track here. I'm trying to keep this under 20 minutes. So I want to talk real quick about like programming your brain is what I have called it. The only way I could do this was to do that because I have a horrible memory. The first thing I learned about programming your brain is you can fall into this kind of programming flow state, but you also like a lot of times you're gonna have to force it. So what I say to myself is like it's a switch. It's not a scale of how focused you are. It's either you're focused or you're not. So I would say I'm going to be impeccably focused for the next 30 seconds. And I'll stay focused like that. And by the end of that 30 seconds, you're more than likely just going to stay on that track. You have to have small and simple thoughts. If I'm having these grand, complex thoughts about, oh, I have to do all these moves and all these moves and all these moves, I'm going to get confused way too much and things are going to get convoluted in my head. I thought 1 or 2 moves at a time, and I waited until they were after to worry about anything else. And it would all go in a linear progression rather than thinking these sporadic, multiple things at a time. I I have it written down. It just says no emotions. I don't think that's true, but you really do like say something's frustrating you. Not even don't let it show. Don't let yourself feel that emotion. If you let yourself kind of feel those emotions in that time, obviously you need to feel emotions and be a healthy human being. But like in these kind of grind states and these flow states of programming to get all this information down, I don't let myself think, oh man, I'm hungry. It's just show. Here's the music. Here's the drill. Let's do it. Do it, do it, do it. And you do it until they say stop and you go to bed and then you repeat the next thing. And people who are in these kind of things a lot, like especially DCI where it's all day, every day, forever, they know this. This is like just their bread and butter. But like I had to kind of learn this kind of stuff. Because it's either do that or hate doing the activity. And I think not a lot of these kids hate doing it that are coming back to it. So we would do sets and we would do music, and I would try and combine as many muscle groups as possible simultaneously, if that makes sense. So I did this while learning the music too, which is insanely helpful later on. So rather than learning the music and then learning the drill and trying to play the music in time with the drill and sync all those things up, I learned the moves from one of my snares, like when I need to move my feet, when I need to be set, when I'm in open second, which is just feet spread out, when I'm doing a certain visual thing. And as I learned the music, I learned those at the same time as the music and just took it a couple clicks under tempo. And so that when I had this music memorized, muscle memory was just allowing me to do these moves then. I didn't have to learn them separately. your brain is a lot better at just finding the sequence and sticking with it. So like reprogramming is so hard. So avoiding that is wonderful. Also, the more muscle groups I incorporated into learning all of these things, the more I was going to remember them. Um, this is not going to be 20 minutes long, I can already tell. So when you are doing something that is a complicated task, there are parts that are broken up which are monotonous. And drums, like if you're playing single strokes like this, just right, left, right, left, right, left, that's insanely monotonous. That's what I would define as monotonous. And so it's really hard, especially say you're like a college level like player and you get presented with something that's easy, really easy. You're gonna have a lot harder of a time memorizing it than something that's really hard. And the reason for that is your brain is a lot less engaged because it there's no patterns in it that are unfamiliar and integrated. You need to integrate yourself is the biggest thing. So I can play all of their music without like too much of a struggle. So I implemented all these moves during it so that when I went, it was just a continuation of like my entire body going. Because when you make the moves more complicated, so rather than just thinking triplet roll and then like a week later doing, oh, I do these moves during a triplet roll, I think I learned the thing at the same time so that one, when I'm playing the triplet roll, I automatically do those things rather than having to add that on. But two, I remember that there's a triplet roll there because my body, I'm relying on more limbs, literally more limbs, to convey that muscle memory. One other thing that's a lot like this is when I'm playing something that I played in years past, just on a drum, what helps me is marking time, like left, right, not only to keep time, but because my limbs were programmed to do all of that, to play all of these things while going right, or left, right, left, right. So it helps when all of your body's integrated. So like when you're learning anything, I make sure to not involve more senses, but involve more ways to learn the thing, I guess. I wish I could convey this idea better because it's really important. Say I want to memorize a sequence of colors. I won't just look at the sequence of colors. I will say the sequence of colors while I'm doing a certain sequence of hand movements. And those hand movements, while it seems like, oh, that's another thing to memorize, will actually help me memorize the more monotonous thing because your brain can make patterns with it a lot more easy. Yeah. Like in this case, less repetition is better. It's much easier to memorize a crazy chunk of music that changes a lot than a chunk of music that changes at seemingly random times, if that makes sense. I'm going to move on to the next idea due to time. Whenever I'd make a mistake, that would scare me. Because whenever you make a mistake, no matter what, your brain doesn't really recognize that it's a mistake very much. So whenever I would make a mistake, I would make everyone, like the entire snare line, stop the rep so I could start over. And this was true when I was learning the music too. And like obviously this was frustrating. I don't think I could have learned the show if we didn't do this though. If your brain allows you to follow through with movements that you think are wrong and you go, "Oh, I'll fix it later." You're not going to fix it later. You have to do things right, not necessarily right the first time, but like second or third time, you have to be getting this thing right and repeating it that way. You have to actively think about doing all of these things in this sequence and do it 100% correctly because you can't rely on your brain to do it. You can't rely on your brain to think about these things and then execute them. You have to do that for the first like 3 reps and then never think about it again. And it was wonderful because we didn't change a lot of the show. So I would learn something, make a mistake, start over. And then I would go the entire way through it without making the mistake, and I would repeat it until that was muscle memory. Because your muscle memory is very strong. Very, very, very strong. They call it muscle memory. It's not really muscle memory. It's in your brain. But regardless, if you can get things right 1 or 2 times and stick with that, your brain will thank you for it. Like you really, really, really got to harp on your mistakes. Not make a big deal out of your mistakes, but not allow your brain to continue on that path. And I really learned that a lot. Whenever you get things right, you rush to the next thing. That was the biggest thing. Whenever I got a set right, I wouldn't say, "Oh, all right, that's cool. Can we go get some water?" I was like, "All right, next thing." Boom. I didn't allow myself to think anything besides let's get to the next thing, because when your brain is in that flow state, it starts piecing together these things in such a nice flow state rather than trying to piece different memories together. It's just one continuous stream. And yeah, I could talk about this kind of flow state that I was in for that whole weekend forever. But the point is, it produced insane results. By the end of the weekend, I had learned the entire show that they'd spent, I think, like 6 months learning, and was performing it half well. Like, there were definitely spots where I'd completely blank and be like way far away from everybody else. But I was in shock, and I know everyone else was in shock, but especially the snares at IUP were in shock because my memory is awful, absolutely awful when it comes to just about anything. So like the fact that I could do this, I knew I was onto something, and I knew that I had to like record this and document these kind of things. Yeah, so I think I might make this into 2 parts. Yeah, okay. This is part 1. It's over. Bye.